Welcome, Mariano Fiscella, to On Influence and Impact. I'm honored to be here with you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you, Amanda, my friend. It's great to be
Mm,
part of this series of leadership sessions, and it's a privilege to be part of your network as well.
Thank you. So, for those who don't know Mariano, he is quite the impressive character and a dear friend, but he is the head of customer operations across the United States and Canada for Uber. What I'm really excited for us to dive into today is trust. In these times of so much uncertainty and rapid change, I believe that trust can be one of those assets that unlocks teams to feel safe, united, and agile so they can perform at their best. I believe that you are uniquely suited to speak about this concept of trust, how to earn it, how to regain it when it's lost, and how to leverage it as a leadership asset across functions, geographies, and cultures. So, thank you again for being here and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. Pleasure to be here and to talk about such an important topic. For me, it's the foundation of everything. If you get trust right, I think you can solve any
Mm.
problem.
Let's start big. What does trust mean to you? Even broader than just leadership, what does it mean to you as a whole?
I think it's foundational by nature. It's one of those things that you need to get it right in order to pursue anything else. It's like a primary need. You need to start with that, whether it's work, business, or personal relationships. If you don't have trust, the problem is that everything that is an engine to get to something else in the future or something bigger is just not going to work. So if you go to a business setting, I believe that if you don't have trust as a foundation, there's no way strategy or vision or any decision to really stick. There's an exchange between individuals, and I'm willing to be led by you because I trust you.
Mm.
I'm willing to give up some of my autonomy and put my well being in your hands because I trust you. And in turn, you are willing to rely on me. I am going to do my best because you trust me. You trust me that I will make the decisions that will help us advance in our shared mission, advance in our projects, our strategies, decisions. And I think most importantly, not only when we are together in the same room, but mostly when we are not in the same room. You're going to trust me when we are not together. I don't need to give you that proof in person. I'll be working on my projects week in, week out, and I will be that person you can trust that I will be aligned to what we discussed. That's the reason why it's so foundational. It's critical to start with that. I see
Mm.
it as an entry point. It's not only about making sure that you can be you. People will trust you in a business setting because they trust you, but also because they trust that you're going to take good decisions for them. You're going to take good decisions for the team. You're going to take good decisions for the company, that your logic is sound, that you have a good sense of what could be the best thing to do for the team because you care
Mm.
about them. You're going to spend authentic energy on empowering the team and allowing them to prosper in an organization that sometimes is so big, so complex. They have many stakeholders and complicating interactions between people. They want to believe that you will take care about them. You will have high expectations, but at the same time, you're going to put your energy in order
Yeah.
to support them.
So, I'm hearing in your answer, there's a core piece around authenticity. Like, how do you show up as your true self as a key part of trust? I'm also hearing this key piece around care. I'm also hearing strategy too. There's an investment in being my true self, showing up with love or care or investment in the individual, and almost earning the respect through my strategic knowledge or my strategic direction too. Does that
Yes.
feel right?
Yes. I love the way you put it.
And what does that make possible when you get that right for you?
It's interesting because I started working in big companies 20 plus years ago. The business environment has changed in the last 2 decades. What I observed more and more is that folks that are especially good at influencing the organization in many directions, like different teams, different groups, not only the vertical leadership within the team, but both sides,
Cross-functionally.
cross
Yeah.
functionally. Folks that really master the art of influencing, they are becoming more and more successful. That trust is so foundational for you to be able to influence other groups. Imagine that influencing some function, team, or person is like getting the keys to their house, right? You have to have the capability to be irresistible. If you are influencing somebody, you're trying to make that person think somehow differently, or to
Mhm.
change the way they think, or have an impact on the way they think about different topics or strategy or in the business. If you have trust, they will open their house. If they open their house, the opportunity to paint a different picture about things, about how we think about this process or strategy. The other thing that I found in the last couple of years is that there has to be a motivation for that influencing. You have the opportunity to have an impact that is broader to your spectrum of command or control within the organization by creating good relationships based on trust with other colleagues, 360 degrees, and by showing a high level of capability in terms of learning what is important for them, by making sure that there's motivation for them to listen to you or your team and receive all those ideas or suggestions for their benefit. So I think that is why I think it's so critical to have trust in the right place, because I cannot imagine trying to accomplish your results or objectives without building that. It's like the door will be closed.
It almost feels sacred.
Yeah. All of us heard that, it could take years to build up trust and only a few seconds to destroy it. But yes, it's sacred, it's critical. And I
Have you
also remember the times that I did it wrong.
Can you share a couple of those moments? Like, when did you hurt that relationship? Or when was it lost, and how did you repair it?
Look, I'm an engineer, and typically I learned that I have a bias towards trying to work hard with building a vision and building a strategy and trying to have clear ideas on what needs to be done. And early in my career, this was more evident than today. I remember a moment when I was taking a new role. I was so excited. It was new challenges, a bigger team. And I remember that team was going through a lot of change. They were experiencing a lot of change. And I came in with a very strong vision. I came in with clear expectations, both for me, and I was setting high expectations for me. It's a new role. I had to succeed, and I had to be clear, and I had to have all the answers. But I truly underestimated the emotional side of the transition.
Mm,
So remember, you said care. Yeah, because I was trying to go fast without acknowledging that the team was recovering from a change fatigue at that
mm.
point. And without considering that, I assumed that I was able to solve everything with a strong plan. So that was my superpower. There may be under a lot of change, but if we build a strong enough plan, anything's possible. And they will follow because I had a responsibility over the team and I was the boss. But I believe that trust wouldn't follow at the same speed. So I think the problem is not that it will fail. The problem is that the potential wasn't unleashed at the right speed.
Yes.
There was some skepticism, and I needed to address that early in my career, but I truly learned from that. I still remember that. Every time I think about an experience that I led fast paced approach, I realize that sometimes it's good to listen, learn, plan, and try not to do it in vacuum.
So, if we recap within that, what goes into trust is strategy, care, and authenticity. You move quick on the strategy without recognizing where the team was coming from or more deeply understanding their experience or journeys, and that hurt.
Yeah. And the beauty of thinking of trust as a long-term asset is that you can fail from time to time. And if
Yes.
you build some good emotional bank account with people, they will allow you to fail
Yes.
a little bit. They will say, hey, you should consider this and that. And it's not a no. It's like, hey, how can we do it possible together?
Yes. And I think that's such a beautiful metaphor, which is that trust is a bank account, right? Because if we invest in these relationships early on in a way in which fills the bank account with trust, then we can have these missteps. We can have these errors because we do need to also balance speed and movement and fast action and fast decisions. But if we have that foundation of trust, we can take a dip on that account, but there's
A
still
little.
more there. We can assume the best from that
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Honestly, what I learned from that case is that now I try to listen before leading. I was so focused on trying to solve the problem and prove myself that pressure can be so strong that
Yeah.
you may be missing things. Maybe I need to spend more time with the folks and listening about how do they feel and, address their concerns, demonstrate through actions that I'm addressing those concerns. I learned it early in my career. Imagine working in a factory, a place where there's a lot of predictability, a lot of things you try to calculate with formulas, right? What I learned is that when I changed my business setting, I moved from a factory to a more administrative or strategic space. There was less predictability, more interactions. It was more complexity, more relations. And, these things just became the most important thing.
How did that shift how you led in that moment to keep garnering that trust with that transition?
What I learned is that I kind of have an advice monster, that just want to give advice and want to share the experience and share thoughts. I think I learned we need to control it. We need to tame the monster. And I truly learned that from that case. Now I honestly and I say it very genuinely, I really enjoy when I jump into a team just to listen. Listen, hey, what do you think? I really like asking this question. What would you do if you were me? What would you do if you were in my position? What are the biggest problems we need to solve? It's really interesting how much you can learn. And then just try to paint a better picture. Otherwise, it will be inevitably influenced by your formulas, your models,
Mm.
experiences. There's a very rich set of data points that you need to try to capture there.
So I hear, how do you earn the right with people through listening? Not just earn the right, but learn so that you can adapt your strategy, adapt how you show up, and in turn earn that trust.
Yeah. Stay a little bit more curious for a little bit more time.
Is that still true for you today as you are leading at Uber?
It is. It is. But it never ends. I refer to the monster, the advice monster. It is there. So it requires this level of awareness and knowing that in my case, what I experienced, it's so much of a high performance kind of environment, trying to deliver all the time. When you are building the first steps with the team, being a little lazy at the beginning to delay your confidence just a bit
Mm.
is essential. And I learned this late in my career. I look back and I think, oh my God, I should have considered this in the past. I might have sound like a know-it-all kind of person, but it's great to delay your confidence. I think what you get from people is multiple times what you get when you close the options by providing your ideas or suggestions in advance. I try not to be that person and try to
Mm.
be as open, inviting, and then we can have a good debate of ideas and try to get to a decision as fast as possible by collecting data points and try to seek what's the best decision for the group and the team and everybody.
So is the advice monster and trust always battling each other?
I think it's just people really like to talk about and discuss topics. People want to be valuable. It's natural to overestimate the value of our advice. Is our advice that good? Sometimes I think we like to believe it, but sometimes no. I like to think that good teams have the ability to confront the brutal facts. Every team has their brutal facts. Things that you know they are not great, they are not incredible, and they have a long way to improve. For me, great teams have that ability. Instead of trying to bring solutions, teams that remain curious about how to solve those brutal problems have half of the problem solved.
So we're starting to get there by your reference to powerful questions and recognizing that we don't know everything when we first start a role. What advice do you have for leaders stepping into new roles with a new team or with an existing team? If you can say, here's my wisdom for how to earn trust in your first 90 days, first 120 days, like what would you tell them to do?
I think the first thing is being transparent about my expectations and what do you think success looked like. I don't believe it's like trying to build big speeches. I think it's more about going step by step with your teams, with your stakeholders, with your important colleagues in the organization that will have an impact in trying to accomplish some objectives. Being transparent about what do you think, listen before trying to lead, and having control in that advice monster we mentioned. I ask a lot of questions. Sometimes I even feel it can be overwhelming because people really try to have some direction from you, but mastering the art of when is a question the best next step
Mm.
is prescription, that is very important. I think early wins in those first 90 days, you are more vulnerable. You are in a new role, leading a new team. Inevitably, you're trying to prove yourself. So, starting small, finding those early wins that can prove both your competence, but at the same time, your ability to connect with other folks within the organization is absolutely essential. It will give you that sense of trust, that sense of confidence as well. But most importantly, people will be able to start seeing some momentum. How were you able to remove roadblocks? And finally, try to be consistent in that experience where I try to move fast and come with a vision and like move into solution mode so fast. As I told you, I had some positive bank account
Yes.
with many folks, which was great. But then you got to be consistent. You got to learn from those cases and make sure that every single moment where you have a problem, where you have a situation in the organization you work or the team you work with, you make sure that you learn from that and you are consistently listening and consistently asking questions, staying curious. That is eventually going to give you that foundation of trust.
I love that. Just to rename what I'm hearing, I really appreciate that you put these early results and early wins on the same level as building relationships with key stakeholders, key partners. The way you say consistent, I'll take it a step further where it feels like there's a consistency in terms of how you're showing up with your values. You're saying consistent in terms of showing up with curiosity, consistent in terms of listening, consistent in terms of having a growth mindset. Those are all values. So, how do you get clear in terms of what's important as a leader?
Correct. How do you make words and actions aligned consistently? If I tell you, hey, Amanda, I really care what you think. So I'm here because I want to listen. What do you think about this project? What do you think about this problem? And then I completely disregard what you say. It will be positive points for listening. You will say, I just lost an hour of my time telling Mariano what I thought. But if you value the input from other folks and colleagues, that is consistency in action. I cannot be more happy to recognize when somebody give me an advice and I clearly say, that was exactly what I needed. Thank you. But then don't forget to say, hey, we're doing this because this person, thanks for that person.
It's closing that loop. And that to me is what regenerates that trust, where you ask the questions, you get advice, you act on it, you go back and give that person recognition or gratitude. I love that.
Yeah. I used to have a boss that used to use this expression. Whenever I had an important decision, he used to say, why don't you noodle on it? And in Spanish, noodle on something is not something that translates. I was like, okay. Then I look at the meaning. The meaning is beautiful. It's like staying with that in your mind. It was so helpful. And I learned the art of noodling on things.
I want to get to trust across geographies and cultures in a moment. But one final question. Do you also have wisdom for how to repair trust when it's broken?
If I made something wrong, or if I'm responsible for that, and I truly believe that I just made something wrong, I will vocally own my mistake fully. No excuses, no justifications. It's okay to be wrong, but it's more important to make sure that you acknowledge that. Saying that you did something wrong is not enough. Mapping and understanding the impact of that. So it's not just about what happened, it's about how it made people feel, right? Acknowledging the emotional side of your actions is even potentially more critical than just understanding. Overcorrecting through action is the way you close the loop. Trust is rebuilt when actions consistently prove that the failure or mistake won't be repeated. We are talking about building trust between individuals, personal relationships, and making sure you invest the time and don't expect to solve something in a second. But yes, I think those three things: deep acknowledging of the mistake, own it, no excuses, no justifications, not even a single word. Consider the emotional aspect of it, and finally, commit to correcting through action. Show the other person that you're there to change whatever is necessary to regain that trust.
I'm just reminded as you share this how important it is to do this. And it's not just a short term play, but it is really for the long term, because the truth is, you may be working with these people for a long time at Uber, or you may be working with these people at every next stage in your career, right? It's a
Yeah.
big world and it's a small world. And it's so important to own your mistakes, shift, and then consistently have your words be aligned deeply with your actions. How do you gauge whether you have trust or not with your team? What's your litmus test for it?
I think the first one is when people don't speak up. Silence is the clearest red flag for me. At the same time, when bad news move faster than good news, it actually shows trust. It is a way of acknowledging that it's safe. Nobody likes bad news, right? But when you look at that bad news faster, I think the underlying thought is that I want to give you this piece of information. I know it's something that you're not expecting, but I'd much rather give you this now so we as a team can figure out how to come up with a solution. When team members reach a level where they can provide true feedback, like radical feedback, not the sandwich kind of thing, like true candor. When you see that, you can clearly identify a team that is built on a great foundation of trust. When I was at Walmart, one of Walmart's values was respect for the individual. I always thought about feedback as the easiest way to respect the other person. Imagine you have a colleague, your boss, somebody from your team. If you see that somebody is not seeing something that is affecting either the group or them individually, not speaking those things up is a way of not respecting them. When a team reaches to a level that everybody feels free to speak up and share their feedback, and hey, I think we should do this better. I think we need to learn from this and learn from that. I think you unleash a brutal amount of
Mm,
potential.
I love that. I appreciate learning something absolutely new from you. It's like the ability to speak up, provide really direct feedback, the ability for bad news to travel faster than good news.
Imagine you are in a team solving a big problem, trying to grab a market opportunity, and there's this strategy. You did the best job possible trying to crystallize where you want to go. You share that with all the excitement with the team, and hey, this is our opportunity. And it's like silence. And then people bring up challenges. So if you are in a world where even with your most rigorous strategic planning process, you are capturing feedback from your team about the strategy, I invite pushback. I like messy meetings sometimes. I really like when it's raw and people bring those responses. I encourage people to challenge the thinking, questioning. Based on that, I can feel where is the trustometer, if you want.
I know you're new to the States, moving here, and you're new to Uber. Have you noticed any big distinctions around how trust translates from one culture or geography to the next?
I've been in many countries, and I think there are natural entry doors related to the intrinsic aspects of every culture. If you go to Argentina, you need to love making barbecues and spending long hours with folks. If you go to Brazil, you got to play soccer. Of course, you got to play football. I think every culture has their own entry points, right? I think entry points are important. But when it comes to the distinctions of the culture, there are dimensions that define the characteristics of each country. One of the things that I observed that it's pretty different from country to country is the relationship to hierarchy. The role that hierarchy plays in different countries is widely different. In some places, people feel more comfortable acknowledging that there's a hierarchy and there's
Mhm.
somebody that is the boss, and even the usage of that word, it's different from one place to the other. In some other places, it means nothing, and you got to live with that. You got to lead differently in those two extremes. I mentioned playing soccer and what you like to do outside the office if you want. I found that the cultures distinguish themselves in terms of the way they use that free time and how important is the way you use free time to build relationships with people. I would say a third one that it was very clear for me in the multiple places I had the chance of living and working, the distinction between whether if people is focused on the future, on the present, or in the past. The degree to which different countries, markets, or cultures are focused on the three of them. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, right? I experienced some places where I want to acknowledge the past. How we ended up here is so important to explain and to spend an important part of your narrative to speak about how
Mhm.
you ended there. And then, of course, you can transition to the future. In some other cultures, it's like, okay, I
Yeah.
don't care about the past. I just want to focus on the future, right? And that's it, which challenges you from the way you think, very importantly, challenges you in the way you build your narratives. Like,
Yes.
where do you put your emphasis on? So that is important. And inevitably, I have differences because I've been in different industries. In some countries, for retail, in others, I did consumer goods. And now I'm in the tech world. It's a pretty different world. I keep learning and learning.
One final question for you. If you have one nugget of wisdom or one go-to best practice in leadership that's like, "Oh, this is so good." What would you share with folks? It can be related to trust or anything.
If you are able to make it a habit to ask feedback often and act on it visibly, I think you will have the trust building challenge solved by half. Ask for feedback, honest feedback, radical feedback, and then act on it visibly. Most importantly, if you have the opportunity to lead a group of people, Make sure that you stay curious. Try to ask one more question before giving advice. It's a signal of respect. It's a signal of acknowledging that the other person can bring value to the conversation, value to the problem you want to solve. It builds trust by showing that I'm invested in learning from you versus just jumping to a quick fix.
I so appreciate both of them, but in particular, that first one around just gather the feedback, have a growth mindset, constantly be learning as a leader, and then put it into practice and then close that loop with that person who gave you the feedback. I couldn't agree more. It's beautiful.
Sometimes we tend to think that excellence is the result of an innate superpower. I'm coming from Argentina and we have Lionel Messi, but Lionel Messi is just one. There's one Lionel Messi. That's the exception. For all the rest of the mortals, I truly believe that excellence is the result of consistency in working important things day in, day out. And when I say working on them, it's actually exactly that. It's how am I doing? Did I collected feedback? Am I being able to tell a story better? Am I being more convincing? Am I thinking this through? Am I listening more? Am I being curious? And I think excellence is the result of all of that.
Mariano, it has been an absolute joy to sit here and learn from you and to hear your wisdom around how to earn that trust, how to regain it when you've lost it, and how to really leverage that across all cultures and geographies. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. This was so fun.
It was really fun for me as well. Thank you very much, my friend, and look forward to many more stories.
See you soon.
Bye bye.